Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. This is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. Show is brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, and joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody.
I thought I'd try to throw in the date. I'm going to work on that a little
Resist.
bit.
Resist.
Resist. We may have some other things going along here. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, well, weather report, fall weather, had some rain.
Had some rain. That's kind of getting a little bite to the air,
Yeah, we've had a couple of cold days. Getting a little definitely a little bit colder. I think it was only this past few days is when I finally turned on the heater. I am notorious for keeping my house frigid, but there's a certain level where I'm like, I'm worried about pipes freezing and stuff like that, and it's like I'm sure I'm keeping it well above that, but I don't want to chance anything. It's like, okay, look, if it starts to freeze outside, I want to make sure my house is warmer on the inside than I normally would keep it. So even if you walk into my house today, you'll be lucky to see it at 63.
Yeah, my daughter is like she's just moved out, right?
Yeah.
She's starting to get utility bills, and so like I heard her and her roommate talking the other day about, you know, uh, those like heater and air condition, man, that's expensive. I'm like, yeah. So I got roommate. She's like you. She's ready to, she do without all that. Put a blanket on, whatever.
Yeah, you learn a lot, when you have to actually pay for the stuff yourself, and you're like, oh, okay. And when we were first married, the house that we had, it had it was that what was it, that heater thing. What do they call that? I forgot already what they call that electrical
Heat pump.
heat pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that thing was just horribly inefficient. Even though we're talking about 1985, but we're not talking about like 1970 something or whatever. But it you could, because it's electric, and you're just doing electric hot air and everything like this. You can never really get the house warm enough without spending gobs of money. Uh,
Yeah.
so it was nice to have a house that has gas heat and electricity for other things, and then we kind of go between the two depending upon the season, and we can control that a little bit better. And if I need to make it warmer because we've got company or whatever, we get too cold ourselves, but I don't have any problem running around the house, wearing something warmer. And since I'm prone to hot flashes, I can't be in a place that's overly warm or gets too stuffy. I'm like, I've got to start taking off the layers or whatever anyway. So, you
Yeah.
know,
It's like my car it gets really stuffy, right? You turn on the heater or whatever. I try to avoid like run the heat in the car at the lowest possible level, and because it gets really hot fast, and there's
right.
nowhere you can't change the air. So I have a little moonroof or whatever. So I even dead of winter, I'll crack it a little and just let in a little air. It
Yeah.
drives Lori crazy. She don't like that at all.
Yeah. My wife knows when things get too warm in the car, if she's driving, when I start cracking open the passenger side window, because I'm like, it's too warm in here for me. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like the roles are reversed as to who's too hot, who's too cold or whatever, and everything now. So, all right. Anyway, so we have the I guess the big, before, one last thing, it is National Play Monopoly Day. So I don't remember the last time I played Monopoly, but I played it a lot as a kid.
Yeah, I did too.
Probably
We
probably
played it,
lost a lot of pieces.
put that game on the kitchen table and all the kids play. And yeah, my parents would play, and, especially my mom, more my mom than my dad, but with long games, my brother, he was just oddly talented at stuff like that. He would always win. And he like the game Risk, where you're taking the countries, he would always win that one, just kill us. And like he could play cards. I'm not any good at cards. It's like dominoes, all that kind of stuff. I can't count fast enough. But he could. He was very good at all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's kind of. I mean, people play board games, but I still think that, we lived in kind of the golden era of board games of,
Yeah.
Monopoly. You mentioned Risk. I played a lot of Sorry.
Yep.
Um,
Played
you
some
know,
Sorry.
Sorry was kind of the alternative to, like, okay, we want to do something quickly, we play Sorry. You want to spend, if you have more time, you can play Monopoly.
Yeah.
Or if you have more time, somewhere in between was like Clue. I loved Clue as a
Yeah.
kid.
We had Clue.
Yeah.
We played cards. We played Bouret. You know what Bouret is?
Nah.
It's like 5-card draw spades, right? So when they deal the first round, they turn over one of the cards, and then whatever that card is, if it's a club, we're playing clubs that hand, right? Then you look at your cards, and you can give back 4 and get 4 new ones, and you're playing, and you're trying to, win more tricks than everybody else. And there's only 5 tricks, so it's pretty, it's tough competition. And you got to win at least one. You got to learn to fold if you don't think you can win at least one, because you have to match the pot. And we were always playing with like we had the same set of pennies, nickels, and quarters and dimes. Like every time we played, we got out the same money and used it and put it all back up. So, you got bragging rights with all your big money in front of you, but you didn't get no money. So.
Yeah, I do kind of remember Old Maid as a kid.
Yeah, Old Maid, we did that one.
Yeah. So when I got older, I got introduced to Uno, so which actually has become a lot more popular than I thought it would ever be. I mean, there's so many variations of that now you can have out there, but it's a nice, clean, fun game and to have around.
Yeah.
So,
and all those were like, they made you talk, right? We're all talking to each other the whole game.
yeah.
And you're looking at each other, right? And you're concentrating on this thing, and you can't, you cannot have a phone then, because you would have to pay too close attention to the game to be looking at your phone.
Right. No. I mean, it was you when you play those games, you were all in on the games. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, can you imagine just having to play those games if you had a phone?
You get smoked because you already paid close enough attention.
Yeah. All right. So on to the news. The Jeffrey Epstein files are going to be freed after all this back and forth and whatever, and years and years of just I don't even know how to describe it anymore. I mean, Trump and the DOJ, kind of didn't want to release all the files, and now they
Biden wanted no part of releasing.
The other administrations were not, they weren't eager to do that either. So this is not just on Trump, but it looks like they had a near unanimous vote in the House, and there was, what's the guy's name from Louisiana?
Clay Higgins, who voted against it, who said, we're going to dislodge information by congressional vote. That's a bad principle. There's, and he's like, he has a provision or two to protect the victims, and so forth. And he said, if the Senate will change that, I'll vote for it. So then I don't think the Senate worried about what he thought at all. They've cleared it for a final vote with unanimous consent. So today there'll be a final vote, but they skipped all the steps. No amendment tree, no nothing. It's just going on the floor today for a final vote, which I expect it will pass with unanimous or close to it.
Yeah, and that in some ways, I guess I think maybe Trump did the Republicans a little bit of a favor, because I think there was just this mounting pressure, and a lot of the people were being very loyal to Trump and sticking with the president. And once the president basically said it's okay to vote for this thing, they went ahead and joined the Democrats, and they just get this through. Now, I mean, I think Higgins, he had a good point. I mean, he said he was doing this on principle, right?
Yeah.
Because like he was saying, he's concerned about the victims and their names and everything like that. And, anytime you get the government, you do always worry about there's somebody who doesn't do something right, or who leaks information where the information should be redacted or protected, and it doesn't get that way. I'm hoping that at some point we just get an end to this whole thing, because I'm really tired about just having the name Jeffrey Epstein appear, Ghislaine Maxwell appear. I don't really care about them. I know that reprehensible individuals. The stuff that went on, was terrible. I don't have. I mean, I have great sympathy for the victims, but this has become such a political football. I'm really just sick and tired of it.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is like, I think Trump. I don't think it was an accident that he made them beg for it like this. I think he did that on purpose, and he really wanted them to get desperate about it and demand it and all this stuff, because there's nothing in there that says that Trump had anything to do with this. That's all the people who have seen it agree with that, right? The New York Times has looked at it, the Post has looked at it, Biden DOJ, Trump DOJ, the victims, their families and attorneys, they all agree on that point. Trump did not do this. So, the idea that, the thing to think about is, Biden made no effort to put it out, didn't want to talk about it, right? Kept it all secret. Trump didn't want to put it out, right? So who's in there? What's in there that Biden and Trump would agree should not come out? So when you start thinking, okay, what's about to happen? Who are we about to out? That makes a big difference in the world. And there's been some speculation. Different people, some say it's Netanyahu. Some say there's some other government leaders involved and so forth. It's already taken down Larry Summers, Prince Andrew. So he definitely ensnared some important people in what he was doing, but Trump didn't kill him, and Trump didn't, he doesn't have anything to hide in this stuff, right? And they keep saying, well, he's mentioned in all these emails, 1,600 emails or whatever it is. Okay, did Trump send or receive any of those emails? And the answer is no, right? He's not on those emails. These are people talking about Trump, discussing Trump. But Trump's not actually communicating with them or taking part in anything they do. So, you think about, all right, what could go wrong here? What could, if we do this, right? And I think that the argument about the victims would be more salient if, most of them have outed themselves, right? They had this thing, a few months ago where they had, 20 or 25 of them, right? And they had them all on the riser. They did a TV special on it, and CNN interviewed the victims. And the first question the lady asked was, did Trump have anything to do with this? And all of them went, no. So then they got into a bunch of other stuff. So, I'm for them getting their justice. I'm not sure that, I'm not sure what that, what that means, what that will actually look like, what is a just outcome here. But I am a little apprehensive about, what if it was a Netanyahu? What if it was a Putin? What if it was a, I guess Netanyahu could actually be hurt by it. What if it was somebody, in a position, a key position that the United States wants them to still be in, gets knocked out over this, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer or whether it's worth it or whatnot. But I think I am a little worried about what comes next. And I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it. Put, like you say, put it out there, make it end, right? Yeah. Whatever. But people should be aware there's some potential downside to this.
Yeah, I'm sure that Trump also, is like, there's no way he would go ahead and okay this if there was something that implicated him in any way, to the negative side. I mean, so they've obviously looked at this and said, okay, look, it's really safe for you to do this. It actually hurts more people like Larry Summers, like the former Prince Andrew,
right.
Which was remarkable, getting stripped like that of his title and everything like that, and in essence being kicked to the curb. So. But it does, there are other Democrats, I would think, liberals, that are probably going to be a little bit nervous about this. This is probably one of the reasons this has dragged on for so long, is because, they want to make sure that they're protected, and that if these files were ever released, preferably they'd be released after they died rather than when they're still alive, but, here it is. And, here you have the Democrats. I mean, this does take away a potential, 2026 campaign issue. The Democrats are searching for something. They're looking for a smoking gun, anything they can. This is all about Trump, right? This isn't really not about, I don't think the Democrats really, in total, all those guys are really that concerned about the victims.
Right.
They want Trump. They're after Trump, and they're thinking there's something in there that gives them what they need to get rid of Trump or whatever. And no, and instead, they could wind up being hoisted on their own petard.
Right.
If these documents, when they're completely released, if it starts implicating others, and if we start seeing big connections, and we already know that there's some stuff going on there with Bill Clinton and all that stuff, but if you start taking off some of these guys here, that it winds up hurting the Democrats more. It's like, well, you asked for it, we gave it to you, now you got to live with it, So
yeah, that's right. And the other thing you said in there is, what does come next, right? What happens to those people? Also, the other thing you said was like, if when this comes out and Trump's not implicated, what are they going to say? Oh, this is not all of it. You're hiding some, right?
Yeah.
They're never going to accept that they lost, right? They're never going to accept it. So, I don't know what you do about that, but it's never going to happen. And it's gross to think about, but it's true. I mean, they're never going to stop on this. They're going to keep going. They're going to keep being righteously convinced that they can get Trump with this. And it's hard to know. It's hard to see, like, what is going to convince them. I mean, I don't know, it's a rump group, right? It's not, but at some point, like the same thing happened during the election. The common sense of the country says, okay, we looked at the proof, right? You offered the proof, he wasn't in there. We got to move on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, for me, part of it too is that, look, I've never held Trump up to be the bastion of moral turpitude, but I haven't. Same thing goes for a lot of Democrats. And it's like, you guys live in a glass house, and watch out when you cast the first stone.
Right.
So it's this. I think this is there's going to be this kind of boomerang effect for them, that they're going to regret doing this in the long run. I mean, just if it claims someone like, I mean, Larry Summers is pretty well known, right? I mean, and he takes himself out of the, he starts to recuse himself from. It's just like, I'm going to,
sink into the background for a while.
Yeah, I'm leaving the, the Anthropic board, and I'm going to continue teaching at Harvard or whatever, but I'm taking the back seat now. Just kind of makes you wonder, what else may be coming down the line.
Right.
So Democrats may find out there are far worse offenses with the Democrats than were with Trump. But I'll be glad to see that you get it out here. It's, we're less than a year away from the 2026 election. This by November of next year, October of next year, whatever. I don't think anybody's really going to be talking about this, and that won't be an issue that the Democrats can pin on Trump. At that point in time, and it even may be with some people, some voters, if it does become an issue, maybe the voters is like, why did you spend all that time and effort and, on doing this?
Lots of false accusations over and over, yak, which is what happened to him in 2024.
Right.
Because, they kept hurling all this stuff at him, and it kept being proven untrue to the point where you couldn't really, you couldn't give them benefit of the doubt anymore.
Right. All right. So as part of all these things too, is that, Trump did have some recalcitrant Republicans, and he's really kind of burned the bridge here with Marjorie Taylor Greene, or as they call her, Marjorie Trader Greene. Okay. And look, I am not a big fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's kind of like, I'm not a fan of Lauren Boebert, those kind of people.
Me
but, but I don't know, I mean, Trump really kicked her to the curb. I mean, he really kind of just, I don't think anybody cares who she is,
Right. But you know what? They're a phone call away from being back on the same team.
Well, that's part of the question, is that, what would it take? I mean, can they reconcile if needed, quickly?
Yeah.
Or is this something that, is irreparable? I don't know. I'm not. I know news reports are kind of the media loves this, right? I mean, we've been in
Right.
the media business forever.
Yeah, all of a sudden
And
she's a genius and Fetterman's an idiot.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
weird how that happens.
oh,
And
yeah. Look,
I always thought, I said all along, she's an idiot and Fetterman's on the other side, but he's a pretty bright guy.
yeah.
He is. He's a pretty bright guy.
Yeah, look, I
He,
mean, Fetterman, you got. I mean, we have said this how many times on this program because Fetterman, has kind of, he does vote with the Democrats most of the time, but he's also willing to vote his conscience and buck the tide and say this is what it is, and then you're kind of like, yeah, okay, it's almost as if he's like an old, blue dog Democrat that we used to have, because he's a little bit more of an independent thinker and saying that I am not going to be the party line 100% of the time because I do think that the country and some other issues come first. And so, it's, I don't go out and I don't hate, John Fetterman. I'd rather have a Republican in office rather than John Fetterman. But, he doesn't really annoy me as much as Chuck Schumer or Adam Schiff and a whole bunch of others. So,
right. I mean, like you say, we don't always agree, but it does look like he's trying to do the right thing. Right. And you don't really get that from Schumer. He's trying to win a game. Right.
yeah.
I don't care about your game. I think that's one of the things that, America's tired of. It's like, it's not a game. It's not a who wins thing. It's, how do you fix some pretty substantial messes that are get possible to ignore.
Yeah, and I think Fetterman's smart too because he knows that registration, has been swaying towards the Republicans more, and that as someone if he's thinking about running for reelection, that he might be able to pick off some Republican votes if he looks more
Right.
reasonable,
Right.
right?
Arlen Specter type.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he could just your Arlen Specter with the official D on it until
Yeah. Yeah. And,
but,
that's kind of a brand in Pennsylvania. It's
right.
like you can't really be a hardcore partisan on either side. The governor is a Democrat. He's viewed as a moderate. The Republican senator from there is viewed as more or less a moderate. Right. So, I mean, it's like that's the formula in Pennsylvania is not to be, an extremist. Like in Georgia, it's the other way around. Georgia is like the more extreme you are, the better, right? The Republicans in Congress are all hardcore, whatever they are. The Democrats in the Senate and then the interior district around Atlanta are hardcore leftists, really to the far left. So that's just like in Georgia, they don't want milquetoast, right? They want extreme, and in Pennsylvania, they want something that looks like them, whether it's in their party or not.
Yeah, I mean, having grown up in Maryland when I was a kid, who are my senators, Mac Mathias and J. Glenn Bell,
Yeah,
not conservative in any way, shape, or form. Mathias definitely a liberal,
yeah,
and Bell was probably more middle of the road, moderate kind of a guy, but we haven't seen anything close to that in Maryland since then. I mean, Maryland has gone totally full the other side, and so we get nothing but a bunch of liberal wackos as senators in Maryland right
right.
now. Um, but Larry Hogan tried, but that voter registration number is just really hard to crack.
Yeah, it
So
really is. Yeah,
though it seems on Facebook that he's lobbed a lot of attacks at Governor Moore. It kind of makes you wonder whether or not he's thinking about running for
yeah,
his
I've
old
noticed that
office
too.
again.
It's like he seems to be saying some campaigny sounding things.
Yeah, he is. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, this Larry sounds like you're running with that, and we could do worse. I mean, the
You can
thing
do
is,
worse. In
yeah,
Maryland, it's like I admit in Maryland, you better not go at it too far right.
right,
It's
yeah,
just you got a lot of voters who don't really understand, and a lot of voters in Maryland with a vested interest in government money flowing.
yeah. It's like, look, I know I have a lot of friends who would never cast another vote for Larry Hogan after doing so in 2014, I guess it was, but I would do it. I would cast a vote for him. I
Yeah,
mean,
you know what? And that's the thing about these deals is like it's a binary choice. Winsome Earl Sears. She was a terrible candidate, but it's her versus Spanberger.
Yeah.
So you're going to, kvetch about she's a terrible candidate, or you're going to vote for, a communist who wants boys and girls bathrooms.
Well, see, and that's the thing. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's the thing about a lot of these elections is that I understand conservatives, and all the different factions of conservatives, and we've been around for a long time. We know a lot of conservatives. We've seen a lot of politics in our lives, but when they're really the absolutists, the purists about we can only vote for this person because they and they have to be right on all these issues. I've got to agree with them 90 or 100% on all these issues, and I'm like, no, I mean, look at where, some states you can do that, right? It's, when it's mostly Republican or heavily Republican, that's probably not going to be a big issue. But you get into places like Maryland or Pennsylvania or whatever, you can't really do that. You're going to have to compromise and say, look, it is a binary choice. It's like, do you take the Republican because what you get is that you get a Republican vote.
It's closer. It's closer to what you want than the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Democrat is basically never going to vote with Republicans for anything, but at least a Republican, even if you don't like him and you don't agree with him all the issues, he or she is probably going to vote with Republicans most of the time, which is actually going to be almost 100% better than the Democrat was. So think about that, and people don't, we've talked, I think before, about the Supreme Court issues, we need to make sure we get senators in there to make sure we get Supreme Court, nomination confirmations, and all of these different things going on here. There's so many different things that go on with elections and candidates. So think about the bigger picture. What do you want to do? Or are you just willing to die on the hill like this? If my Republican candidate isn't pro-life, I am not going to vote for him. It's like, well, then you're costing the Republicans a chance to do some other things. And I am, and I am with you, but
well, but see, that, like you bring up pro-life, it comes to a point though when you do that, it's like, what am I willing to compromise on? It's like you say, okay, you have to check these 12 boxes or I'm not voting for you, right? Okay, well, what if you checked 10 of the boxes, but the 2 that you don't check are the ones that are most important to me? And like, if you're a Republican and you're pro-choice, I'm probably not going to vote for you, right? And I'm probably not going to the polls that day. I'm not going to vote for the Democrat, but you're missing the point to me. So I can't express support for you. So so if we're going to say, if you're a party, I mean, we're for a certain set of things. Right? Now that set of things evolves over time, and some move up and down in their place of importance in that list, right? Sometimes your issue is at a few years ago, you rarely could get through these things without somebody talking about global warming. You had to be prepared to deal with global warming as an issue, Republican or Democrat. Now it rarely comes up at all, and I'll never forget, Al Wynn, the great congressman from Maryland, Cheeseburger Al. He told me one time, he goes, here's the thing about global warming. He said, if you ask people, is that an important issue? A big high percentage will say yes. But if you say, list your 10 most important issues, you'll very rarely see that on a list. Right. So, it's how you ask the question. So, which is that was a very insightful thing. It's like how polling works, how opinion gets manipulated and so forth. But now you're at a stage where, I mean, no one wants to be associated with that issue really on either side, right? Because the argument's kind of been won, and the left lost, and so they don't really want it. But our side is really want to come off, sounding like we're pro-polluting, right? So it kind of just doesn't get talked about because it's where it's going to be, and neither side has the power to change it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll win. I mean, I almost kind of missed the guy.
Yeah, he was funny and he was honest, and He just did his thing.
It certainly was. I'd certainly rather be represented by Al Wynn than David Trone and April Delaney, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so these people that that they've foisted upon us over the years. It's kind of also, Montgomery County centric too. It's just like Doug Duncan,
Yeah.
as county executive. A heck of a lot better than what they got afterwards.
Right. That's
You
right.
know, and it's funny. I mean, it's like I couldn't stand Doug Duncan when he was in office, but now you look
Looks pretty
back.
good now. I
Now you look,
liked Duncan. That was when I was at Montgomery Journal. I covered
yeah,
Duncan. We have the same birthday.
yeah.
So did Weaver, his right hand man. He had the same birthday too.
No, that's funny.
But Duncan was. I mean, he was a can-do Democrat.
Yeah,
Right. He had the Go Montgomery. Right. He was trying to build the roads. For a Democrat, he said a lot of pretty Republican sounding stuff.
yeah. At the right time, he could have been the governor. I mean, he just.
Yeah.
I think he would have been a half decent governor because he was just so much better than most of the other Democrats. I mean, it's like, we get stuck with, Ike Leggett and Neil Potter and all these other people, and now Mark Elrick, and we just drift further and further to the left.
Ike Leggett, I want to point out to my Louisiana friends who watch on here, is graduate of Peabody High School in Alexandria.
Hey,
he's related to all those Leggetts that live in Central Louisiana.
All right. See, I keep learning stuff.
I always talk in Louisiana. Whenever I saw Ike, we had a long talk about Louisiana.
Oh, that's so funny. All right. Well, we'll continue moving on. So we had MBS visit the White House, which obviously raised some eyebrows with some people, but Trump hosted him in 2018 or something like that. So I think he's just they're trying to forge better relations between the two countries.
Sell them F-35s.
Yeah.
So people need to understand F-35s. It's a fighter jet. It's the most expensive military procurement program ever in the history of the world. They started flying them before they were really ready to fly. They said, we will put this into service, and when we see what messes up, then we'll fix it. So if you're a pilot driving 800 miles an hour in one of these planes, and they're like, we're just going to see what goes wrong and fix it then, that's got to give you some cause for pause. So the objective of F-35s was interoperability. We're going to build one plane that the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army could all use. Well, not the Army, but the rest. So then they started trying to do it. The Air Force wanted it to be fast. The Navy wanted it to be to have range. The Marines wanted it to be like those Harrier jets where it could go up and down without any takeoff, because they land in some places where there's no runway. So, by the time they get around to building the plane, you're really building three different planes. You said you were going to build one that's interoperable with all the others, but you're really building three. And then there was a lot of technical stuff that went wrong as they moved up the ladder and so forth. But the objective of those planes is, if we're in a war and we've sold these to our allies, we can all talk and communicate and fight together, against the enemy, right? Because we all have these planes that can work together. So when you're selling people F-35s, you're saying, we think in any future war that we can kind of imagine, we're either not going to both be fighting it, or if we are both fighting it, we're fighting on the same side. And so, most of the people we've sold them to, that's been a pretty safe assumption. Now you're starting to get into some trickier people like Turkey and now Saudi Arabia, where, there's people who doubt whether the Saudis are reliable allies. I have, my opinion is that they kind of are. They sort of do what they say. You may not like it, but that they're sort of reliable. So, you say, well, okay, you're signing up, the people who killed Jamal Khashoggi, right? You're now partners with them. Jamal Khashoggi was, working undermine the government, right? I'm not justifying what they did, but, they saw him as a strategic enemy and not as, a human rights crusader. and they have a lot of evidence that their view of him is correct. So, when you sort of say, oh, that's all nonsense, it's not really nonsense, and especially not to them. So, I don't mind them being there. I don't mind us talking with them. They're saying all the right things about expanding Abraham Accords, about, stabilizing the Middle East in a way that it has not been stable in our lifetimes, really. So, I'm anxious to see what kind of, you got a rare instance where you have sort of a deal maker in the U.S. Who understands how to put all this together. I mean, Biden would not have imagined trying to hook the Saudis and the other Arab states to Israel against Iran. I mean, no one in the Biden orbit would have ever conceived that would even be possible. They were childlike in their understanding of what was going on. And so, you'd actually have people who understand what's going on. And it looks to me like overall not a terrible thing.
Yeah, I think I thought I said somewhere too that one of the concerns from some quarters was just that the closeness between Saudi Arabia and China, and that the technology might, seep to them, and we don't want that happening. I don't know whether or not that is how legitimate a concern that is. It's maybe something that needs to be watched, but I can't imagine that the administration, isn't, trying to find a way to make sure that our technology does not just get copied by the Chinese.
Right. Well, right. So there's two versions of it. There's the version they sell to other countries and the version that we have, which, we don't sell to other countries and we keep proprietary and so forth. The other thing is like Chinese probably already have the other version captured from something else. It's unlikely that they haven't gotten to that. They've gotten to pretty much everything else. And, you really can't guard against that, but you can if you're setting up a framework where they're going to make a whole lot more money off of tourism and whatnot, and cooperating with the United States than not cooperating with the United States, certainly decreases the danger. Because I mean, we view government as a operation to protect us from outside threats. They view government as a way to consolidate the profits and share them.
Yeah. All right. Next up, so just kind of under the radar to a certain extent, they had a close, I think it was a relatively close mayoral race in Seattle, and the Democratic Socialists beat the incumbent mayor, as I understand. So we have yet another Democratic Socialist mayor in another very liberal city. All I know about her really is that, she has zero experience in government of any kind. I mean, at least Mandami had been on the city council or whatever. He'd been a politician already to an extent, but this Katie Wilson really hasn't. So,
she's like 37, right?
Yeah, she's pretty young and everything like this. It's like, okay, it's like I don't know if I'm from Seattle and I'm a Republican or conservative. I'm like, I don't know. Is she going to be, looking to Mandami and say, come on, and then give me some advice here. Tell me what I got to do. Where am I going to find my staff?
Well, I think that like H.L. Mencken, great Marylander, once said, people deserve the government to get the government they voted for good and hard. So I think that's about what's going to happen to Seattle. Like these, if you go there now, I mean, the last time I was there, I haven't been there probably 6 or 7 years, but the last time I was there, massive amounts of homelessness, all that down, all that like what they call SoDo, south of downtown, where the stadiums are, is homeless tents, all that kind of stuff downtown, like where the Pike Place is and all that stuff, the Starbucks headquarters. There's all kinds of like bums and stuff there. Massive poverty. The schools are terrible. The infrastructure is not able to meet it. They're deviant. They say defining down deviancy. Deviancy is defining down Seattle, right? It's to the point where the deviancy is the city. So, you know, maybe that works. Maybe that you can run successful American cities like that, but I don't think so. So, you know, it's like, you know, it reminds me of Ricky Sanders when he played for the Redskins and they would start going bad. He would say, we've hit rock bottom. The next week they'd lose and we've really hit rock bottom. And, you know, I remember Kornheiser used to joke about the various geodesic layers of rock bottom, you know, and I think that's where Seattle's going. They're going to go find out what's really rock bottom. And I think New York is in the same. New York is so big that, you know, like it's hard to move it too much. So, you know, even if you had like Trump became mayor of New York, it's not clear how much he could do to fix it, right? I mean, you would get momentum toward fixing it rather than momentum toward making it much worse, which is what you have now. But, you know, that ship of state is kind of hard to turn around. It kind of is what it is. But that's not the case with Seattle. Seattle's smaller and movable. So, you know, they can descend into whatever they descend into, and they get tired of it. Hopefully they'll do something about it. Beautiful city. It's too bad.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point though, because I mean, when I traveled, I used to travel a lot. You know, I'd wind up in various cities where they were going to locate stadiums in the downtown area to try to revive them, and so it's been a number of years. And I remember the whole issue about building the new stadium, and I was in the. I can't remember. I had to go down to that other part of town for some reason, and I think maybe just to go to an Office Depot to go get some boxes or something like that. But I'm like, and then now I'm looking like they're going to put a stadium here, and I kind of felt like that when I was in Denver, and you know, I don't know whether or not you have any insight or you've watched this develop, you know, in any of these cities around the country, but I guess this, you know, the stadiums work in the sense that, I mean, you know, they built them so and teams play there. I don't know how much revival they get in the long
economic
run.
engines. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, versus say like crime and the other things that have will, you know, because you have to kind of clear out some stuff, but how do you keep it from coming back?
Yeah. I worked with Eli Lear at Heritage, and do you know him?
Oh yeah.
R Street.
R Street.
Yeah. So we used to have this discussion all the time. And Eli was totally against 1 penny of public financing for stadiums. And I'm like, okay, so if you look at what happened with Baltimore, Camden Yards was sort of a late comer to the revitalization effort of downtown Baltimore. The Inner Harbor was first, you know, the stuff there on the front, the hotels and whatnot were first, right? And it was sort of wedged between them. It helps some, doesn't help a ton, but it does help some that they're there. Nats Park is undeniable, massive plus for the community it's in, right? All those apartments and restaurants and stuff that's built up there is really impressive. Like Philadelphia, Atlanta, the stadiums are kind of on islands. So there's these, the company Live, you know, Live Entertainment, which is there, everything from porno to kids basketball tournaments, right? They set up these like, they're almost like tent cities of restaurants and you know, amenities right around the state. Like in Philly, it's like on the parking lot. There's, you know, in Philly, there's the 2 stadiums and a massive parking lot that's big enough for both of them. And, you know, so, and basketball. In Philly, they have all 3 on the same lot. And so this thing is open most of the year, you know, serving the various sports teams, you know, and so forth. But some places like, you know, San Francisco, it didn't work. Seattle, it didn't work. Denver, it really didn't work. They didn't attach it to downtown, right? And so it didn't really generate a lot of growth that wouldn't have been there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's some areas. I mean, yeah, I mean, Camden Yards is. I mean, I like the stadium. I mean,
oh yeah, it's a great place to see a game.
It spawned a lot of imitators after that.
Yeah,
you know, I guess I don't know. Though I didn't really mind. I didn't go to that many Orioles games. So I always thought it was kind of quaint walking through the neighborhood at Memorial Stadium. You had to walk blocks and blocks and blocks to get to the stadium.
Yeah, I loved going to Memorial too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see. All right. Michelle Obama's on a book tour apparently, and she's made a few comments, and one was about a female president, and and don't kind of was it? She said like, "Don't talk to me about that," kind of thing. And then she also had this other comment about why black people don't swim because you know our our hair our hair's curly and when we spend all the time straightening it and all that. It's like I don't quite what is with Michelle Obama. I mean, what is
She does seem put upon by living a pretty sweet life, doesn't she? It's like she does not have God in her life, right? And people laugh at that and scoff at that, but if you don't, then it's hard to be happy, right? And she there's no material need that she has that's not met. They're worth millions of dollars. They have several beautiful homes and all that stuff. So it's she lives a life that most of the world would trade for, but it doesn't make her happy. Why does it make her happy? Why you have a family, you have all this stuff, you can travel anywhere you want to go, you never worked a day in your life. Why can't you be happy, right? And it's like, I don't know. As for female president, yeah, as soon as there's a decent candidate, we'll elect them. I promise you, it's a big advantage to you if you're a decent candidate. It doesn't work against you; it works for you, right? We're ready to trust a woman. If we find one we can trust. Is that you got to admit, right, that you tried it twice with terrible candidates, right? And terrible candidates. So when you say, why can't a woman win? It's like you haven't run a decent candidate yet. You really haven't.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I don't know. I mean, if you're a woman and you've been a Democrat and you hear her say that, are you trying to say that just like you said, it's like, well, what she's trying to say is, in essence, really is that we can't win unless we run a reasonable, a good candidate, or is she just discouraging women from running for a while because they've done so poorly?
Yeah, and there's nothing. I mean, what did they put $1.5 billion behind Kamala? So it's not like people didn't try to make it work. And there was even, there was tons of money behind Hillary, right? Hillary she had like 12-1 money on Trump, and when they ran against each other, and he'd never, like you say, he'd never had held public office before. She had all the experience advantage and so forth, but she didn't work hard, and she didn't connect, right? And it's the same thing with Harris. She didn't work hard. She didn't, she was sitting over the vice president's residence till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. In a lot of those 109 days or 107 days or what it was, you can't come out of your house at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon if you're running for president, right? You get up early in the morning, you go hit morning news shows, get on a plane and go rally and go to another rally and another rally and hit something at night. That's what being a candidate for president is, right? It's hard work. People don't realize like the schedule. Like I worked for Tom Davis. We'd be going to an event. And what time is it? You tell him, and we got 20 extra minutes. Like, he never wanted to be anywhere early because that meant that time could have been spent somewhere else, right? So he'd like pull into this grocery store and he'd go in and ask the manager, and he'd stand out front and greet people, just shake hands. Hey, I'm just Tom Davis for Congress, right? Because it was like early morning till late night every day. If you want to be in politics, get ready for that schedule because, you ran for office, right? It's all encompassing. It's all you do for those few months, right? Morning, noon, and night. And if you're not ready to do that, don't get into that game because all the people who are successful at it do that.
Right. The days of Republican congressmen in Virginia.
yeah, may soon be gone because they're going to redistrict and they're going to go after the three or four are left, and I think Kiggins in Virginia too is probably in trouble anyway.
It's things just as it goes along, it does change. So it seems that President Trump, has gotten a little more serious about affordability after the elections in Virginia and New Jersey. And I mean, things really aren't terrible, except that they're not, I mean, he made some pretty audacious promises during the campaign about how he was going to cut energy prices and all of these things, which, he had limited ability to do certain things with that. And then you just kind of you do reach a point where, things are only going to go so low for multiple, reasons and everything like this. I think that, you know, I think that they're losing the message a little bit. I mean, the Democrats are, what their message on affordability really is: try socialism,
Right.
right?
Right. Which
You know,
never
and,
worked before, but
right, yeah, right. And I mean, really, I mean, talk about the fact that it's like, okay, maybe inflation is not as low as the 1.7 when I left office before the first time around, but it averaged 5.1% during the Biden years, and it's 2.8, 3%, depending upon what figures you look at. And
President said 2.7 the other day.
yeah, I mean, and we don't really have any government. We haven't had any government figures because of the shutdown. So, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood, give or take.
Yeah.
So it's still better than it was under Biden. So
Right.
things in that sense, okay, look, yes, prices are still increasing a little bit, but they're not going crazy mostly, and so they're still more affordable now. There's so many different factors into whatever you. But I love how he brought these people. He kind of had like McDonald's summit, and he's praising McDonald's for the value meals.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means people are going to flock to McDonald's for the $5 and $8 meals, but but they, the Republicans, if they can sort this out, if they can make it clear that things are much more affordable now than they were under Biden, they
Right.
can win this thing, right? Because right now their message, I don't hear their message very good, loud and clear about exactly what are they doing on this.
Beth said that under Biden, the average household, you lost $3,000 a year, and now he said that we've already brought back 1,300 of the 3,000. So it's not, we're not even Steven yet, but because it's the price of Oreos is not going back to 28 cents a pack, right? It's going to stay whatever it is, right? Now, what you're trying to do is keep it from going up as fast as it was going up before, right? You're not really, things like energy, the price can go down, right? We can really see, and it is. You can see the gas pumps are going down. Notably, the price of diesel is going down, which diesel and home heating oil are basically the same thing. So, home heating oil will not be a huge price problem for the administration this winter. And food, eggs are way down, bread is way down, pork is way down, beef is not, so there's some hit and miss. There's some work to be done. But what's happening is it is trending in that direction. It's not trending back towards, the inflationary spiral of the Biden administration. And you're putting a lot of money out of the public sector and into the private sector, right? And we're now, we're cutting government employees, we're cutting government agencies, we're cutting government spending on all kinds of stuff, Doge and, all the Doge stuff they found and USAID and all that. And, we're replacing it with, I guess the Saudis, one of the things he said is that the Saudis are plan to invest $1 trillion in the U.S. in the next 5 years. So that's $200 billion a year, and or 11 trillion. It was 1 trillion, and somebody said their GDP of the country is 1.1 trillion, but they have this huge sovereign wealth fund, right? That they're gonna, they make all this money and they put it in this fund and they invest it, and they're betting on, that's part of their thing here, is they're betting on that investment being in the U.S. So, we're a very attractive investment vehicle. Trump's not lying about that. All these countries are coming to him saying, how do we get in? And, people are trying to dodge those tariffs. And I guess the tariff case before the Supreme Court was heard in the last few days did not go well for the people trying to stop I think that the justices understand that, the statute says what it says. the question is it constitutional for Congress to have ceded that power to the president? Right. The plain language of the statute says that Trump can do what he's doing. And, so the argument is, it's one of those things. If we're in an emergency situation, we can do this. So, what defines emergency, and it's basically if the president says it's an emergency. So, I mean, these are novel questions. They've never been decided or ruled upon before. So it'll be interesting to see. But if they rule that the tariffs that Trump established are unconstitutional, that is a extinction level threat to the economy. So I think that they will. I think that when the Supremes look at the numbers and so forth, they will side with Trump on this.
Yeah, well, I don't know which way they'll go, and I'll just kind of wait and see. I'm going to have a wait and see attitude on how that all kind of shakes out. The tariffs have had some negative impact, but they've had other positive impacts as well, or just kind of neutral effects where things have, the costs have been absorbed by, all the people along the line there, and didn't really make it fully all the way to the consumer. So
right, it's not a tax, and you don't. If there's a 10% tariff on something, doesn't mean that you will pay 10% more for that product. It's just right. A lot of those costs get eaten and amalgamated elsewhere and pounded down and so forth. And, some things it does. And the thing about it is the way Trump has this set up, this week, last week or so, he's reduced tariffs on coffee and some other stuff, right? To just reduce the cost. Okay. Well, he needs to be able to just flip things on and off as we see the need, right? You can't have to go to Congress and get 60 votes in the Senate every time you're going to change these things, because it happens too swiftly. And Congress doesn't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. So, he found a thing in the statute, and unless they want to rewrite the statute, which I don't think they're going to get 60 votes for that for sure, then he has the power to do what he's doing, or appears to be he does.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff too depends on where you shop. I mean, when I saw this thing about the tariff on bananas, I'm like, okay, I don't. We buy our bananas probably 95% of the time, and not more, from Costco. That price basically hasn't budged.
Right.
Right. So it's whether or not the tariffs go up or down, it doesn't affect the bananas at Costco for whatever reason. It might affect them at Giant, Safeway, Aldi, Lidl. I don't know. I generally don't, we generally don't buy the bananas there. I've never quite understood the price of milk and its variations. We sometimes wind up in Elk Ridge, Maryland at Costco on a shopping excursion kind of thing, going from place to place. And I always go into the the refrigerator, the thing, to check the price of milk there. And it was like, I think I was there a week ago. It was $1.98 a gallon, right?
Wow.
Okay, now the Costco here, my neck of the woods in Gaithersburg, the last time I bought it, which was about 2 weeks before that, it was like $2.82. All right. And I'm thinking, like, okay, this is Costco. It's like, what exactly, what is the factor of in between that period of time why do we have this wide variation? I'm not going to sit here and try to explain it. We don't have enough time to, but it's just it's wild to see milk below $2 a gallon. It's like, okay, I still have some milk in the refrigerator. I'm buying some milk now.
Yeah, that's right.
And it worked out because we had a whole bunch of those missionaries over our house the other day for breakfast, which was not a planned event. So it's like, I needed milk and juice that I happened to have. It's like, okay, that worked out really, really well. All right. We round up here, getting quick down to the end. Just real quick. So I called it the Nvidia economy. The markets have been kind of, they kind of gorged on all the AI stuff, and everybody's investing in AI, and every time you get an AI and your company sells more AI related things, and your stock shoots up. And even if it means there's going to be a lot of expenses to AI to do that, and we know that AI is very expensive. And the payoff will be a long time. It's not immediate for these companies. But today, Nvidia releases their quarterly earnings. So the market is anxiously awaiting it. I guess they were up this morning after several down days. Whether or not they hold, we'll see. But it's interesting that you now have. To me, it's really like this one company. I mean, if Nvidia reports earnings that are below expectations, we're going to have a few more. We're going to have several more down days.
Yeah,
If
it'll be
not
a run
weeks.
on AI stocks. Yeah, or
Yeah,
tech
it will
stocks.
because they've already been trending down. I mean, Facebook is way down. All these other companies are they've really been chopped recently because of their AI spending. But if Nvidia doesn't come out, looking good, uh, and the expectations, that company has grown like something I have never seen before. It's just incredible that they always that every time they release their earnings in the last couple of years, they don't just beat them, they obliterate them. And it's like, well, you get to a certain size, you can't do that anymore, right? I mean, you can't grow at a 60% clip forever. It's just
That's right.
it's just not possible. So I wonder sometimes if the market doesn't set their sights too high, but hopefully for the economy
That's one of
overall.
those things that like you're gonna the money's gonna consolidate, right? Those when you first started with AOL and those guys, those stocks jumped wildly, and now they move incrementally. So
Yeah.
just there's a mass of companies, and the companies have a mass of product offerings and so forth accumulated to where no one event destroys their balance anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give credit to Jensen Huang, who has done an incredible job of building that company, though.
Yeah.
It's pretty phenomenal. All right, a couple more things. Well, Kamala apparently is out stumping for a Democratic candidate in Tennessee for Congress. I mean, that's a Republican seat that's open right now, so I don't think anything's going to change. But Kamala is, how desperate are you if you're going to get Kamala out there? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's
Well,
hard.
they're trying to, see if she's viable as a presidential candidate again. I don't think she is. I don't think the donors will give her money, right? Not after what happened last time. But the not coming out and being drunk and stuff like that. I just don't think they're gonna pay for that again. I could be wrong, but I think that if they can find any other vehicle, I think Newsom has kind of played out. I don't know, I don't know what they're going to come up with. I wouldn't be surprised if they go really hardcore radical and get an AOC or someone like that. She'll be eligible this time. She'll be over 35.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Yeah. It's it's coming out. You better figure out like how you're going to talk about it politically, because you're going to be sitting there with an older white guy, and saying, "Hey, the future is us, not her," right? And that's going to be a tougher sell to voters than you would think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's that is good. I mean, the Democrats have got a problem there that they're going to have to figure out.
Right? They can't probably. It'll be hard to stop her from being the nominee. I don't know if she can win a general, but it's a challenge. Both sides are got to have to deal with it.
All right, putting on your MRC hat. It's only been 4 days, I guess, but how has there been any noticeable difference between MSNBC and the newly branded MS Now, which I didn't know what it stood for until I looked it up? My source for news, opinion, and the world.
My source. Okay. No, I think they're doing what they were doing. I don't think there's been a notable.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think they've MRC has run anything on that yet, but that's a good question for them to keep tabs on.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some changes, obviously, because they had to, some of the personnel that they were using, went to the NBC side.
Right.
That's it. And so like MSNBC lost like Steve Kornacki and things like that. So there's some people that were there you'd see a lot of that you're not going to see anymore in general. But I don't know how MS Now goes as an independent entity. Cable news. I mean, Fox News does fine, but the whole cable side is just continues to deteriorate overall.
So in the 2020 election, on election night, 13 million people watched CNN. 2024, 550,000 watched CNN. That's a serious reduction, right? And I don't know where MSDNC was on that or whatever they call it now, but now that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Now.
I just said it.
Yeah, there you go. And you told me what it stood for. I mean, I should have been able to. But that whole milieu is dying, right? The Fox News doesn't get to command the ratings or the respect influence that it did before. It'll take a while. It's like, my aunt's 90. She sits there with the Fox News on all day, which a lot of people who are 90 do that, right? So, that thing is not dead yet, but it's not a growth industry. Cable news, whatever you want to call it, that's not a growth industry on either side.
Okay, and then finally, is it too early to play Christmas music? I was in a store the other day. I walked in the morning and I'm like, whoa, they're playing Christmas music.
Well, I mean, there's a lady that in Shreveport that she's like the downtown development authority person, and she was a former news anchor, and everybody loves her. Her name's Liz Swain, and she put, she's like, how early is Christmas stuff appropriate? She was showing something in Shreveport that was doing it, and I'm like, I'm one of those people. I don't care. You start Christmas whenever you want. She goes, June. And I'm like, well, I'm going to giggle at you a little if you start in June, but it's going to be okay. Right. But, I'm for an early start to Christmas, and like, there's no Thanksgiving music, right? It's not like you're bumping Thanksgiving music out the thing. So I guess there's, Alice's Restaurant. That's Thanksgiving music. That all happened on Thanksgiving. They had a Thanksgiving meal, and then they went back to put the trash in the church, throw it down the bottom of the hill. But anyway, that's the only Thanksgiving music I know of. So you can't play that one song over and over. So you might as well play some Christmas.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really care that much. Sometimes it just jolts me a little bit, but then I think about retailers who are well before Thanksgiving are already putting out Christmas merchandise. So it's like, if you're trying to sell the Christmas merchandise, you might as well have Christmas music to go along with it.
Exactly.
Make you feel festive. Why not?
A lot of people, like, we travel, I go home for Christmas.
Yeah.
So, to me, like the end of Christmas season in terms of, any decorations I'm going to put up in my house or whatever, the end of Christmas season is going to be about the 20th of December. So when should I start something that ends on the 20th of December? Right. It's not the 15th of December. It's, back to kind of where we are now.
Yeah. All right. We're at the end. Just say, this also turned out to be today the 106th anniversary birthday of my mother. Did I have that right? Yeah. 1919. So, she passed away 8 years ago. But I think, we know when we lose our parents, it's kind of still an emotional, kind of hard thing like this. But, so we just happened to hit on the show date. So happy birthday, Mom in heaven. Yeah. And as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let tell you otherwise. Remember always, and God bless America. Due to the schedule, Thanksgiving, I won't be able to do the show next week. So we'll take next week off. And I'm traveling the following week, but I think we're going to target December 4th. I think that's a Thursday.
Okay.
I think I'm flying on Wednesday. So anyway, for our viewers and for Brian's edification, I'll stay in touch. All right, everybody. See you. Thanks for joining us today.